Welcome back. It's your host, Gabe Morales. We've been covering the Idaho Department of Corrections. Currently, Bree Derrick is the head of Idaho's prison system, stepping into a key leadership role as the department navigates operational changes and policy shifts in the modern era.
It's a job that comes with intense scrutiny, high stakes, and enormous responsibility. For the first time since stepping into the role, Idaho's new Department of Correction Director is speaking exclusively with Idaho News 6. I'm neighborhood reporter Riley Shoemaker, and I sat down with Bree Derrick for her first one-on-one interview since taking over the state's prison system.
Trying to teach people how to behave differently. We can't do that if we come at the work from a really negative place.
She's no stranger to the complexities of the justice system. Now, Bree Derrick is leading Idaho's prison network at a pivotal time.
So I started my career in corrections over 20 years ago in the Rhode Island Department of Corrections.
Derrick has worked across the country, spending more than 6 years consulting state prison systems from New Hampshire to Hawaii, learning what works and what doesn't. Her philosophy, real public safety, begins with behavior change.
I think for most correctional departments, the real goal is public safety. And the way we get that is behavior change. And how do we do that? Those tools are really accountability and rehabilitation. We've got to have both of those things at all times.
She says Idaho has taken a different approach, prioritizing staff retention and encouraging officers to lead with respect.
They approach the work with humanity, first and foremost. That's really key for us. We're one of the only states who've kind of solved the correctional office staffing crisis. We were down nearly 300 positions about 2 years ago. We have had lower than a 5% vacancy rate for almost 18 months now.
Now, as director, Derrick wants to invest even more in employees and shift the culture from survival to supportive. And as national attention turns to Idaho's firing squad law, Derrick says the timeline is firm and construction is coming.
With lethal injection, there's an uncertainty in the availability of chemicals, and so the firing squad provides a much more certain method of execution. Pretty soon, we'll need to actually start the retrofitting and the construction of our execution unit to be able to do this with dignity.
As we've previously reported, all Idaho executions are currently on pause as a lawsuit seeks to improve media access to the existing setup involving lethal injections. Reporting in studio, I'm Riley Shoemaker, Idaho News 6.
In part 1, I covered some of Idaho's prison gangs, but in addition to white gangs, there are many Hispanic street gangs in the state whose members often wind up within the walls of Idaho DOC. The Treasure Valley area of Idaho consists of Ada, Canyon, and Piatt counties, which are areas that have been historically agricultural, while the Ada-Boise Meridian area is more urban and suburban. The cities of Nampa and Caldwell, Idaho have grown substantially since the 1980s, becoming mini metro areas within greater Boise, Idaho. The Nampa Northside Gang evolved from a large, predominantly Hispanic barrio on the north side of town during the 1980s, and later adopted a Norteño identity. Nampa Northside is made up of 2 cliques, Northside Big Time and Northside Tiny Toons, with Big Time being the senior clique. Total membership of the 2 gangs together is estimated to be around 250. Inmates from these 2 cliques are the dominant source of Norteños incarcerated within Idaho DOC, and the gang has verified links to the Nuestra Familia and Norteño street gangs in Northern California. There was also a small Norteño clique from the Farmway Village labor camp in Caldwell called Barrio Campo Locos. And in the small town of Parma, Idaho, there was a small clique called Brown Pride Locals 14. In Nampa, in opposition to the Northside gangsters, there was a group calling themselves Southside. This was purely geographical at the time, and at first had nothing to do with authentic Sereno 13 gangs. Around 1992, a family from Texas transplanted to Caldwell, Idaho, with some of the kids in that family claiming membership in Eastside Locals. They began to gather members from other gangs and developed a rivalry with Playboy Crips, who also wore blue, but eventually learned that most Hispanics in California do not claim Crip, so they turned into Sureños. Some people dispute that story, but this was told to me by law enforcement who worked Nampa and Caldwell in the late 1980s to early 90s. Eventually, Southside Nampa became True Blue Southside Locals 13 and adopted the Sereno ideology. There's also a small clique at one time called Pelones Rifa, who were rivals of Northside Nampa. Some of the first influential members of Eastside Locals were Juan, Richard, and Robert Alanis. Juan was first identified by law enforcement as being a Playboy Crip. Richard and Robert, who are twins, are currently both serving time for murder. Richard is presently residing in the federal BOP and is no longer considered to be in good standing with ESL, and Robert is now housed in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. There are also some ESL members in Idaho Falls. 18 ESL members were prosecuted for gang recruitment and related crimes in the year 2009, and beef with Norteños, as well as another Sureño gang, Westside Lomo Locals. Westside Lomo Locals adopted their name in opposition to the Eastside and Canyon Hill neighborhoods when they were active in the early 1990s. Early influential Westside Lomo Locals included Pablo Javier and Abel Rodriguez, as well as Greg and Freddie Esparza and Baldemar Gomez. Senior members of the gang were prosecuted for drug trafficking in 2007, which caused significant disruption to their group. Just like in California, most Sureño gangs get along and unify in opposition to Norteños and other gangs. The Magic Clica has its origins from two gangs, Hispanics Causing Panic and Eastside La Primera in Nisa, Oregon. Many of the original members of BMC were actually related by blood, and they adopted the Sureño identity by 1992 and also crossed over into Ontario, Oregon. Original members included Mariano Insane Perez, Hector Puppet Alvarez, and Alfredo Papos Castro. Perez is serving life for shooting a Nampa police officer. Alvarez is also serving a life term for murder, and Castro served 12 years for a RICO case. BMC can also be spotted sometimes in Piatt, Idaho, as well as Caldwell, Nampa, or Boise. Rivals include Norteños, although their primary rivalry is against 18th Street Shadow Park locals, who are very strong within the state of Oregon. 30 BMC members were successfully prosecuted on the RICO statute in 2011. Like I said, Alfredo Papos Castro was one of those individuals named in that case. Sols 13 is a Nampa area gang created by gang members at the Idaho Maximum Security Prison to end the war between two rival Sureño gangs mentioned previously, Westside Lomo Locals and Eastside Locals. One of the main founders of this group was Mario Gonzalez, who was shot approximately 2 weeks after his prison release. The Budweiser crew started in the Idaho Falls area during the mid-1990s. Some of their founders were Robert Stranger Flores, Ricardo Boxer Lopez, Joshua Caution Kelly, and Gabriel Funny Kroll. Ricardo Lopez was a member of the gang who was eventually sentenced to 19 years in the BOP and was mentioned as part of a 2012 federal case. Cayo Loco is a Blackfoot and Idaho Falls-based street gang. They align Sureño, but are rivals on the street to the Budweiser crew. In December 2023, a fight involving 31 prisoners broke out at Idaho's maximum security prison and sent one prisoner to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The brawl was brought under control when corrections staff used pepper spray to subdue prisoners in the day room, while others in the outdoor recreation yard complied when they were ordered to lie down on the ground. Weeks prior, a 45-year-old prisoner was beaten to death at the Idaho State Correctional Center. The victim, Mario Warnock, died of multiple blunt force trauma wounds about an hour after he was attacked. In November 2024, Juan Santos Quintero, who was identified as being a Sureño gang member, was handed down a life sentence for killing 26-year-old Junior Garcia in June of 2023, while both were inmates at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. A press release said that Santos Quintero severely and brutally beat Mr. Garcia by kicking and stomping his head. Like other Crip groups, the Westside Crip villains mostly engaged in drug sales, as well as other crimes. This gang was based in Pocatello, Idaho, on the Fort Hall Indian Reservation, and I believe is mostly made up of natives. There have also been some Bloods identified in Idaho over the years, but they do not appear to have a major influence in the state today. But the situation in Idaho DLC is not all bad. Many reforms have been made in recent years to improve safety, and there have been better efforts to assist inmates concerning reentry to society and transitioning back to the community after release from custody. One of the biggest factors in obtaining success is a good paying job. I recently spoke with Jay Christensen, who was employed with Idaho DOC from 1989 to 2021 concerning these efforts. So today I have Jay Christensen. He is a past employee of Idaho DOC, and he's going to tell us a little about a very exciting project he's currently involved in. Hello, Jay. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
All right, good. Aloha from Hawaii. Thank you for coming on the show. And could you tell people what years you worked with Idaho DOC and what roles you're involved in?
Yeah, I started my employment with IDOC in the summer of 1989. I retired in October of 2021. The time that I was there, I started out as a correctional officer. I had worked my way up. I worked a variety of different roles, from officer at the Idaho State Correctional Institution to transfer into an area called special projects at the minimum custody facility, where I would take out inmates for fire crews and trail crews and different types of road work. After that, I went into an area in maintenance, which was called security systems foreman, and I worked as basically the locksmith for the Department of Corrections for about a year and a half. Well, my heart really was in security, and so I went back into security as a corporal, and that was at the minimum custody facility. Wasn't too long after that, I was promoted to sergeant at the Maximum Security Institution. Worked in that role for a while, and then I made lieutenant at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. And to that role, I transferred over to the Idaho State Correctional Institution, where I had started, and I worked as a lieutenant there. Later on, I was selected as a position as what's called the emergency coordinator, where I did the training for all emergency procedures throughout the state, and I did that role for about 2 years, and then I went from there to deputy warden. I worked as deputy warden at most of the facilities south of town, and my final deputy warden position was at the Idaho Center, the Idaho State Correctional Center, which before my retirement, I would offer the position as warden. And so my last 4 years was spent as warden at the Idaho State Correctional Center. And during my time with the department, I also was involved with the Correctional Emergency Response Team. I spent 14 years serving on the Correctional Emergency Response Team, and 4 years of that was as the commander.
Well, it sounds like quite an interesting career there, Jay. Can you tell us about this new, since you've been retired, some of this new stuff you've been doing, new projects?
Yeah, so it was about a month after I retired that I was doing some traveling, and I got caught in Toronto Pearson Airport in Canada. Plane did not make it back to the United States, so I spent 3 days there in Toronto trying to get back into the United States. While standing in a line for several hours, I started chatting with a lady. She told me about a workforce development platform that she utilizes internationally in a lot of different municipalities. And when she found out that I was a retired warden, she wanted to start communicating with me regularly about some ideas. And we basically partnered up and redeveloped it. And it's now on inmate tablets in two very large states, Texas and Florida. We are statewide there. We do a lot of work with the staff training. I have visited over 100 of the facilities between those two states, conducted training in those. We've done hundreds of virtual mock interviews. We've trained them in resumes, and we prepare them for jobs when they get out.
Wow, that is great. Well, some of our viewers may not be aware, but corrections does a pretty good job about keeping them locked up. In the past, it has a very punitive history, as we've heard in this series. However, most of these people are getting out one day, and I think we haven't done a very good job in transitioning offenders back into the community, helping them readjust. And by that, I mean classes before they get out, and also assistance transitioning back to the community so they can become successful members of our society. And one of the biggest factors in that is having a good paying job. And so that really sounds great. Any more things you have planned here on the horizon?
No, we actually have several states on the horizon that we're going to be going into. We have some that are already contracted and signed. We have some that we've been awarded portions of the state on some grants. And excited, I'm going back into my home state here in Idaho real soon. We're going to be doing a 1-year pilot to partner with them on further development and use of the platform here.
Wow, that sounds great. Well, they're very lucky, I think, to have you, Jay. Somebody has the on the job experience, practical experience, not just theory, and knows how things work on the inside, and is also making a contribution to all of us to help make our community safer, to help offenders readjust and feel good about themselves once again, having a good job, getting all the things that each one of us wants in life. They're no different. To have a roof over their head, food in their stomach, and take care of their family and do the right thing. I think a lot of them, especially the older ones, really want that and are looking for that. So thank you for providing that program and that outlet for them to become successful.
And the name of the company is WORKBAY. If anybody wants to take a look at it, we're open on, it's real easy to find. It's workbay.net. There's lots of information you can take a look at there. And I'm easy to contact by looking me up on that site and sending in a submission. I've always said, I'd like to tell you that I've always said that the United States has the highest incarceration rate. I personally believe, everybody may not agree with me, that the reason why we have the highest incarceration rate is because we are the freest country in the world. We have a very dense population. We are the freest country, and when you have that kind of freedom, they're going to have some bad actors that take advantage of that. And on top of being the freest country in the world, we also are a law and order country. And when people do violate those laws, we do prosecute them. That's where we wind up filling up the prisons. The one step that we've never have taken is we do not have departments of reentry. We do not have bureaus of reentry. We have always put them away and thought that punitive measure of just locking them up for a certain amount of time was going to correct the behavior. But when somebody gets released and they have absolutely no resources, what kind of choices do they have to make at that point?
Well, thank you. I really, again, appreciate you coming on the show, and thank you for all you do, sir.
You bet. Thank you.